Hey, folks, welcome to Phantoms and Monsters Radio. Now, California is a land of extremes. Its landscape stretches from fog-shrouded redwood forests to the northern coast to the rugged Sierra Nevada, the densely populated cities of the south, and the vast isolated desert surrounding Joshua Tree, Yucca Valley, and 29 Palms. Now, behind the familiar images of beaches, Hollywood vineyards, and national parks lies another California landscape filled with accounts of massive upright creatures, unexplained disappearances, strange entities, anomalous staircases, winged humanoids, alleged shapeshifters, and things that seem to move between our reality and somewhere else. Now, tonight, we'll examine a collection of disturbing California reports that span more than 4 decades. Some involve creatures that may resemble Sasquatch. Others describe beings that do not easily fit within any established cryptid category. Several accounts suggest that forests and deserts of California may conceal phenomena far stranger than any undisclosed animal. These reports are presented as they were described by the witnesses and the sources. Some have never been independently verified, and several contain extraordinary claims. However, each account contributes to a larger pattern of high strangeness reported throughout the state. Now, we begin in the dense forest of northern California, where a group of servicemen and 2 university professors reportedly entered a logging camp that was being terrorized by something enormous. Now, the following account was submitted by an individual identified as Jay. The witness stated that during the 1980s, his father was stationed at Alameda Naval Air Station near San Francisco. While on leave, his father and several shipmates decided to take a camping trip. They visited a sporting goods store reportedly somewhere near Berkeley to purchase equipment. Now, while inside the store, they met 2 professors from the University of California at Berkeley. According to the witness's father, the professors were inexperienced campers and asked the servicemen to help them select the supplies that they would need. Now, during their conversation, the professors explained that they'd been contacted by a logging company operating somewhere in Northern California. Something large was reportedly causing extensive disruption at one of the company's logging camps. Equipment and supplies were being disturbed, and the workers had become frightened enough that normal operations were being affected. Now, the exact location was never clearly established, although the witnesses remembered his father saying that the camp was near the California-Oregon border and possibly close to the coast. The father told the professors that his family had worked as hunting guides in Colorado's San Luis Valley near Wolf Creek Pass, and because of that experience, he considered himself a skilled tracker. Now, the professors invited the servicemen to accompany them to the logging camp and assist with the investigation. Now, after reaching the site, the group searched the perimeter and discovered several enormous footsteps. Plaster cast were reportedly made of some of the impressions. Now, the track pattern suggested that a large creature had been repeatedly walking around or scouting the outer boundary of the logging camp. The workers then led the investigators to the fuel storage area. There, they reportedly found large footprints approaching several 55-gallon drums of diesel fuel. The track circled the storage area before leading away toward a nearby ravine. Now, according to the father, one of the barrels had been removed. The footprints became noticeably deeper as they continued away from the depot, suggesting that the creature had lifted the fuel drum and carried it without setting it down. The barrel and the large tractor tire were later discovered at the bottom of the ravine. Now, whatever had moved the objects appeared to have carried them to the edge, throwing them down the embankment, and then walked back into the surrounding forest. That night, the servicemen, professors, and logging workers gathered around a campfire. They drank beer, talked, and watched the darkness beyond the firelight. After a while, the witness's father noticed that it appeared to be 2 points of light eye shine approximately 8 to 9 feet above the ground. Something was standing just outside the illuminated area watching the group. The father quietly moved away from the others and attempted to circle behind it. He wanted to approach the animal without being detected. Now, despite his tracking experience, he could not get close. He reportedly removed his boots and attempted to move through the forest in his socks, but the watcher remained beyond his reach. Each time he approached its location, it disappeared. He would return to the campfire, and approximately 10 minutes later, and the elevated eye shine would reappear. The process was repeated several times. The father later admitted that the experience had frustrated him, and he had spent years tracking wildlife, yet whatever was standing outside the campfire seemed to anticipate every move he made. Now, over the years, his son repeatedly asked whether he believed the animal had been a Bigfoot. The father always answered carefully. He refused to say he had seen Bigfoot because he had never had a clear visual observation of the creature. What he did know was that something enormous had been moving around the camp, leaving exceptionally large footprints and demonstrating an apparent ability to evade an experienced tracker. Now, his story remains consistent over the years. He never claimed to have seen the creature clearly, nor did he attempt to embellish the encounter by identifying it as, something that could not be confirmed. Whatever haunted that Northern California logging camp appeared to possess extraordinary physical strength, intelligence, and awareness of the humans attempting to track it. Now, the logging camp count can be interpreted as a possible encounter with an unknown primate or unusually intelligent forest creature. Now, the next report is far more difficult to categorize. It involves a recurring warning allegedly passed between members of a Northern California search and rescue unit. If you discover a staircase standing alone in the wilderness, do not approach it. Do not touch it. And under any circumstances, you should not climb it. Now, the account was submitted by a person identified as H, who stated that a friend had worked as a search and rescue officer in Northern California for approximately 11 years. The search officer first joined the unit while attending college. And during his initial training, he began hearing stories about isolated staircases found deep inside the forest. Now, these were not crumbling stone stairways or remnants of abandoned cabins. They were described as clean, modern residential staircases standing alone among the trees without walls, foundations, or any visible evidence that a building had ever existed around them. His trainer warned him never to approach the stairs. He was told not to touch them and to never climb them. And for approximately 1 year, the officer followed those instructions. Eventually, curiosity overcame his caution. During the search for a missing teenage girl, the team's tracking dogs followed a scent into a remote section of the forest. The search officer was lagging behind the main group when he noticed a staircase standing some distance to his left. The team was reportedly about 10 miles from the trail where the girl had disappeared. The stairs looked as though they had been removed from a newly constructed house. They were covered in pristine white carpeting. There were no walls, railing, foundations, or surrounding debris. The officers separated from the searchlight and walked towards them. As he approached, he did not feel any immediate fear or physical sensation. There were no unusual lights, sounds, or changes in the atmosphere. The most conspicuous detail was the complete absence of dirt, leaves, dust, animal tracks, insect activity, or other natural debris on or around the structure. The white carpet looked new. He touched it and felt the slight adhesive texture often associated with freshly installed carpeted. After checking that his radio was functioning, he began climbing. He later admitted that he was frightened because of the warnings that he had received, and part of him expected to be transported somewhere else. Another part imagined a UFO descending over the clearing. Nothing happened as he ascended. He reached the top and stood on the final step looking out across the forest. Then the atmosphere changed. The longer he remained there, the more strongly he felt like he was doing something forbidden. He compared it to entering a restricted section of a government building and suddenly realizing that armed security personnel might appear behind him. The feeling intensified. He became convinced that something was observing him and that he could be attacked at any moment. Then all the sound disappeared. The officer could no longer hear birds, insects, wind, or movement in the surrounding forest. More disturbingly, he could not even hear his own breathing. He described the silence as resembling an oppressive form of tinnitus, not an ordinary lack of noise, but the sensation of sound itself has been removed. He quickly climbed down and returned to the search team. He did not tell anyone what he had done. Later that day, after the search had ended, his trainer was waiting for him at the welcome center. The trainer confronted him with an expression of intense anger. "You went up them, didn't you?" It was not phrased as a question. The officer asked how the trainer could possibly know. The trainer responded, "Because we didn't find her. The dogs lost her scent." The officer asked what his actions had to do with the missing girl. The trainer demanded to know how long he had remained on the stairs. He answered that it had been no more than a minute. The trainer stared at him with what he described as a cold, almost lifeless expression. He was told that if he ever climbed another staircase in the forest, he'd be immediately dismissed from the search and rescue unit. The trainer walked away and reportedly refused to discuss the incident again. The missing girl was not found during that search. Now, whether the sudden loss of her scent was connected to the officer climbing the stairs is unknown. However, the trainer's reaction suggested that members of the unit may have believed these structures were associated with disappearances or disruption in search activity. Now, the mysterious staircase account introduces a recurring feature in many wilderness anomaly reports, a sudden and complete loss of natural sound. The same phenomenon has been reported before cryptid sightings, UFO encounters, apparent portal events, and unexplained disappearances. Our next account also originated with a Northern California search and rescue source. This time, a missing child was recovered alive nearly 15 minutes outside the established search area. The boy claimed that he had been kept in the forest by a blurry, eyeless being he called the Fuzzy Man. Now, the report was forwarded by a source identified as SR. And according to the account, a family entered a California park to pick berries near the main entrance. The parents were accompanied by two young sons, both reportedly under 5 years old. And at some point during the outing, one of the boys disappeared. A major search was organized, but search teams found no tracks, clothing, disturbed vegetation, or other physical evidence indicating where the child had gone. Now, tracking dogs were unable to establish a scent. The disappearance was described as though the boy had simply ceased to exist within the area. The search continued for an extended period, but was eventually suspended. Approximately 6 months later, the family returned to the park to place flowers as a memorial dedicated to the missing child. They brought the remaining son with them. While the parents were arranging the flowers, they reportedly lost sight of the boy for only a few seconds. He had vanished. The disappearance of a second child from the same family near the same location initiated an enormous search operation. Approximately 300 volunteers reportedly participated. Searches examined trails, forest clearings, ravines, waterways, and remote terrain for miles around the location. Once again, no usable trail was discovered. Almost 2 weeks later, a volunteer searching approximately 15 miles outside the designated area radioed that a child had been found. Search personnel initially assumed the boy would be deceased or critically injured. Instead, he was alive and appeared to be in remarkably good condition. When the recovery team reached him, the boy was sitting calmly on a log. He was playing with a small bundle of sticks tied together with an old rope. His clothing were clean. He had no obvious injuries and did not appear dehydrated, malnourished, or severely traumatized. When asked where he had been, the boy answered that he had been with the Fuzzy Man. Now, one of the search and rescue workers believed he might be describing Bigfoot and asked whether the man had been covered with hair, but the boy said no. He explained that the being was fuzzy in the sense that his body looked blurred. He compared its appearance to what a person sees when closing their eyes without completely shutting them. The being had emerged from the trees and taken him deeper into the forest. The boy said he slept inside a hollow tree and was given berries whenever he became hungry. When asked whether the Fuzzy Man had frightened him, the child said it did not initially seem scary. However, he disliked that the being had no eyes. The boy was later questioned by law enforcement personnel. He reportedly repeated that the blurry man had kept him near a hollow tree and allowed him to walk around within a specific clearing. Whenever the child appeared to leave the permitted area and became angry. The boy said the Fuzzy Man could yell extremely loudly despite having no visible mouth. Now, at night, when the child became frightened, the entity could somehow make the surrounding area brighter. He also gave him a bundle of sticks that he still possessed when the searchers found him. Now, the child said the Fuzzy Man originally intended to keep him. However, it eventually released him because he was not the right kind, according to the Fuzzy Man. He neither could not or would not explain what that statement meant. The search for the first brother was reportedly renewed, but no trace of him was ever found. The recovered child could provide no information about his brother's location. Now, although the entity was called the Fuzzy Man, the description does not necessarily suggest a hair-covered creature. A blurred, partially transparent, or visually distorted humanoid is similar to what witnesses now call a glimmerman or cloaked being. Now, whether the story involves such an entity, a child's attempt to describe a human abductor, or an account that became distorted through retelling remains unknown. Now, the Northern California forest reports describe enormous tracks, impossible strength, unexplained staircases, missing children, and entities that may be able to distort their appearance. However, not all the California mysteries are hidden among the trees. In October 1956, something bizarre reportedly fell upon the sky of a residential neighborhood in San Francisco. What landed in a woman's backyard was not wreckage, ice, or aircraft debris. It was a dead monkey. Now, on the morning of October 26, 1956, Faye Swanson walked into the backyard of her home in Broadmoor Village near Colma, California. She discovered a dead monkey lying beneath her damaged clothesline. Now, the plastic-covered cable had been forced almost to the ground. Pieces of the animal reportedly remained attached to the line, and the wooden support posts were cracked. The damage indicated that a 5-pound monkey had struck the clothesline with tremendous force. Now, the Broadmoor District Police, the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, and the Civil Aeronautics Authority became involved. Civil Aeronautics Authority investigator Joseph Markovich was dispatched from Mills Field to examine the scene. Now, Markovich reportedly admitted that his usual specialty was aircraft maintenance inspection. He had been sent to gather facts, but the animal's origin was unclear. Now, the body was transported to the SPC facility in Coyote Point for examination. Investigators agreed that the monkey appeared to have fallen from a considerable height. Police Chief Ray Savage suggested the animal may have suffered heart failure during the fall, but that did not answer the most important question. Where had it come from? Airlines operating in the region were contacted. Pan American World Airlines frequently transported rhesus monkeys from the Philippines to the United States for medical research and polio vaccine production. However, Pan American denied responsibility. Now, the airline stated that it was not recently transported a shipment that would correspond with the timing of the incident. Representatives also explained that laboratory animals were secured inside locked wire cages within pressurized cargo compartments. Even if a monkey escaped its cage, it would still have been unable to pass through the sealed aircraft doors. Other airlines were similarly unable to account for the animals. Various possibilities were suggested. Perhaps the monkey had escaped from an aircraft. Perhaps it has somehow clung to the outside of a plane before losing its grip. Some commentators even speculated about a connection to nuclear testing in South Pacific. No explanation was ever confirmed. The monkey had apparently fallen from the sky with enough force to destroy a residential clothesline, yet no airline, laboratory, or animal transporter claimed it. Now, the Colma incident demonstrates that unexplained California reports are not limited to shadowy eyewitness sightings. In that case, there was a body, physical damage, police involvement, and an official aviation investigator. Yet, the basic question of origin remains unanswered. Now, our next encounter moves south to Santa Monica in a historic Georgian hotel. There, an information technology contractor awakened at 3 o'clock in the morning and discovered a grotesque disembodied head floating in the center of the room. Now, in 2000, the witness was working as an information technology contract for MGM Studios. He was staying at the Georgian Hotel in Santa Monica while the building was undergoing a major renovation. Now, during his final night at the hotel, the witness suddenly awakened at approximately 3 a.m. Light entering through the window combined with the night light inside the room allowed him to see something hovering in the air. A disembodied head was floating in the middle of the room. The witness described it as a man's head, but its appearance was grotesque. Snakes seemed to extend from the scalp in place of hair. The skin was dark green and appeared to move as though it were composed of smaller serpents. The entity moved its lips as if attempting to speak, but the witness never heard any voice. The mirror was mounted on the wall in front of him. Looking into it, the witness could see the back of the floating head reflected in the glass. This suggested that the apparition possessed three-dimensional form rather than appearing on a flat image projected into the room. Without knowing why, the witness told the entity that he was not welcome and had to leave. And he repeated the command several times. The head slowly faded from view. The witness immediately turned on the lights and searched the room. Because he had been working at MGM and had seen various props and special effects equipment, he initially suspected that his co-workers might be playing an elaborate joke. He examined the room for projectors, hidden equipment, reflective surfaces, wires, or anything else that could have produced the image. He found nothing. The witness remained awake until morning. When he arrived at MGM for his final day of work, he questioned his co-workers. They denied being involved and assured him they'd never staged something so disturbing. One employee then told him that the Georgian Hotel was believed to be haunted. The witness remained uncertain about what he had seen. He eventually wondered whether the floating head had been a demonic entity searching for someone to influence or to possess. Now, the apparition at the Georgian Hotel was unmistakably non-human. However, some witness claims that anomalous beings can appear human for extended periods, living among us, forming relationships, and only briefly revealing what they truly are. Now, the following California witness believed that a man she met through an online dating service was not human. She described psychological manipulation, paralysis, implanted visions, medical dreams, and momentarily physical transformations. The witness, identified by the initials FF, acknowledged that her account would be difficult for others to accept. She stated that she met a man through an online dating site and began a relationship with him in October of an unspecified year. Now, according to FF, the individual gradually took control of her life psychologically, emotionally, and physically. She became convinced that he was not human, but an extraterrestrial biological entity. FF claimed that the man occasionally revealed another form for only a few seconds at a time. During these transformations, his body appeared to expand until he was approximately 8 foot tall. At other times, vertical slits briefly appeared in his eyes. Each apparent shapeshift lasted between 1 to 5 seconds. Whenever it happened, FF would rub her eyes or turn away. She repeatedly attempted to convince herself that she had misinterpreted what she saw. Eventually, she began to believe that the man was deliberately allowing her to glimpse his true appearance as a way of frightening or tormenting her. Now, during the relationship, FF experienced a terrifying vision in which she was struck by a vehicle. In the vision, she awoke in the hospital, held in the arms of the alleged entity. She felt she had died for approximately 5 minutes. She perceived a brilliant light and felt as if she were traveling through a wormhole passage into another dimension. FF heard the voices of deceased and distant family members and felt herself entering a place of profound peace. She did not want to return. Then she heard her mother's voice telling her to breathe. She suddenly regained awareness. The man she was dating was holding her. 4 of his friends were reportedly standing around them. They told her that she had fallen and struck her head. Now, she believed the experience had been implanted in her mind to create a powerful emotional bond between her and the entity. On another occasion, she was lying on his bed when the room appeared to transform into the interior of a spacecraft. She saw the man operating or piloting the craft. Shortly afterwards, she fell asleep and later awakened in a panic. When they first met, the man strongly denied believing in UFOs. She described his response as conveniently skeptical and dismissive. Near the end of the relationship, however, she again raised the subject. His opinions had completely changed, almost as if he'd forgotten the statements he had previously made. She began experiencing recurring dreams involving alien medical procedures, entities entering her bedroom, and interactions with hybrid children. The incident that finally caused her to end the relationship occurred late one night while she was lying beside him. Someone knocked on the door. When she attempted to get up, she discovered that she was completely paralyzed. She couldn't move. She also noted that the man was intensely hostile towards religion. He repeatedly attempted to persuade her that God did not exist, that human beings had no souls, and that death resulted only in physical decay. These conversations contributed to her belief that some extraterrestrial entities might actually be demonic beings, while benevolent entities might correspond to what religious traditions called as angels. The man's physical characteristics also seemed unusual to her. He had hazel eyes, reddish brown hair, an extremely thin body, and a visible rib cage. His tongue appeared abnormally large. He had various scars and birthmarks, including a formation that resembled three triangular puncture marks surrounded by a brown circle. She eventually became convinced that the entity had collected reproductive material from her while she slept, possibly for cloning or the creation of a hybrid offspring. After ending the relationship, she described herself as emotionally numb, disconnected, and unable to cope with what had occurred. She had not previously shared the story because she feared ridicule and judgment. Whether FF encountered a non-human entity, experienced psychological manipulation by an abusive human partner, or suffered altered states of consciousness, or interrupted traumatic events through an extraterrestrial framework cannot be determined from the report alone. What is clear is that she considered the experience real, devastating, and life-altering. Now, the shape-shifting account occurred within an intimate and human relationship. The next witnesses were a married couple walking their dogs through a rural area of Southern California. They first noticed that the frogs and insects had stopped making noise. Seconds later, something with enormous wings landed in a sycamore tree with enough force to break a large branch. Now, the witnesses lived in Deluz, California, a rural community in the hills west of Temecula. Early evening after work, the couple walked their two dogs for approximately 1 hour. The incident occurred before the annual daylight savings time change or an exceptionally dark and moonless night. The couple had reached the most isolated section of their walking route, approximately 2 miles from the nearest homes. They suddenly experienced a powerful sense of unease. At nearly the same moment, the surroundings fell silent. Frogs stopped croaking. Insect sounds disappeared. The witness commented that a predator might be nearby. Seconds later, the couple heard the sounds of enormous wings beating overhead. The wing beats were so powerful that the witness felt their air moving around them. Although the night was calm and windless, the force generated by the winds blew the woman's long hair. Something descended into the dark sycamore tree. A heavy branch cracked beneath its weight. The witnesses sensed that the creature was hostile or menacing. They began running. Neither wanted to turn around and look directly at whatever had landed behind them. And as they fled, they briefly saw it flying overhead. Now, the witness insisted that it was not a large conventional bird. Its wings moved unnaturally, and the creature appeared to lurch upward rather than taking flight with the smooth, coordinated motion of an eagle, owl, or other known species. The husband had previously been a committed skeptic, and after the encounter, he could not produce a rational explanation for what they had heard or seen. He discussed the incident with coworkers and friends and refused to walk through that section of the trail again. The woman later revealed that this had not been her first anomalous experience in the area. Last summer, she saw an extremely dark figure emerge from a creek. The entity resembled a large hybrid between a feline and a human. It climbed the same massive tree and disappeared from view. The witness believed the figure may have possessed wings. After that earlier sighting, the couple experienced three seriously negative events, although these incidents were not detailed in the report. The woman wondered whether the entity might have been a shapeshifter. She also questioned whether discussing shapeshifters shortly after an encounter had somehow attracted its attention. She described herself as an intuitive and susceptible to unexplained experiences, but stated that this particular incident genuinely terrified her. Now, the Deleuze encounters contain several details frequently reported in winged humanoid and cryptid cases: environmental silence, an overwhelming sense of menace, tremendous wing-generated air displacement, unusual flight mechanics, and a dark humanoid form. And as we move eastward into California's eastern district regions, reports of enormous creatures become even more numerous. Yucca Valley, Joshua Tree, and Desert Hot Springs, Hemet, and Lucerne Valley, and the 29 Palms have produced decades of stories involving giant tracks, impossible strength, military encounters, upright primates, and beings with disturbingly human faces. These incidents have collectively contributed to the legend of a creature known as Yucca Man. The first account was submitted by J.H., who received permission from his Aunt Deborah and Uncle Tom to share their experience. The encounter occurred sometime during the early 1990s in Yucca Valley, California. Deborah and Tom were driving home around dusk. They stopped at a stop sign approximately 1 block from Deborah's residence. Without warning, two enormous hair-covered creatures crossed the roadway directly in front of the truck. Both creatures were moving on all fours. They walked in perfect synchronicity, placing their feet down in the same time and maintaining an identical rhythm. Now, Deborah said she could feel the earth shake beneath the truck with each step. She did not describe the footfalls as ordinary walking. They were heavy stumps. When the creatures reached the front of the truck, both turned their heads toward Deborah and Tom at exactly the same moment. They looked directly into the vehicle. After staring at the witnesses briefly, they simultaneously turned their heads forward and continued marching towards the open desert. The location was near the boundary between the residential neighborhood and an undeveloped wilderness. Paved streets ended nearby, giving way to dirt roads and open desert. One of the strangest elements of the encounter was the presence of a pack of stray dogs. The dogs accompanied the creatures and appeared to follow them in an organized manner. Deborah and Tom compared the behavior to a wolf pack following its dominant leader. Now, despite walking on all fours and being covered in hair, both creatures reportedly possessed human-like faces. Tom feared that it might attack or overturn the truck. And based on their size and the force of their movements, he believed they could have flipped the vehicle effortlessly. Now, J.H. later researched similar reports and discovered an older story involving a prospector named Turner Helm. Now, Helm reportedly encountered a bear-like creature with a human face near Warner Springs during the 1800s. Now, although the historical account is difficult to verify, its description is strikingly similar to the human-faced quadrupeds observed by Deborah and Tom. The Yucca Valley encounter is not the only report describing more than one creature. One of the most frequently repeated Yucca Man stories allegedly occurred in the early 1971 at Marine Corps Base in 29 Palms. A Marine assigned to night guard duty at the rifle range was reportedly discovered the following morning in almost incoherent condition. His rifle had allegedly been bent nearly in half. The Marine stated that he heard or sensed something approaching through the darkness. He raised his weapon and ordered the unseen figure to halt. Instead, the creature charged directly toward him. It seized the rifle and bent it with tremendous force. The figure was described as resembling a Yeti or abdominal snowman. And according to later versions of the story, federal personnel arrived at the base following the incident. Men dressed in dark suits allegedly questioned the local residents and sought information about unusual activity that occurred during the night. Now, residents near the intersection of Valley Vista Street and the Utah Trail reportedly observed two creatures during the same period. One was exceptionally large, the other was smaller. Neighborhood dogs began barking furiously, prompting residents to look out their windows. Two witnesses identified as Johnny and Ray reportedly saw the creatures and later spoke with investigators. Farther down the road, the beings were allegedly observed near a horse corral. The horses appeared frightened and agitated. Another sighting reportedly occurred around the same time inside what was then Joshua Tree National Monument. The witnesses in that case were reportedly monument employees. Veteran Bigfoot researcher Bobby Short circulated the 29 Palm story in February 2001. However, no publicly available military, FBI, or CIA documentation has been located confirming the bent rifle, the injured Marine, or the alleged federal investigation. The absence of official records does not conclusively disprove the incident, but it means the story should be treated as an unverified part of regional cryptid lore. Now, 8 years after the alleged base encounter, another enormous creature reportedly appeared in Desert Hot Springs. In May of 1979, a young couple was leaving a condominium complex north of Palm Springs. An enormous hair-covered figure suddenly emerged from behind a yucca plant and moved in front of their vehicle. The driver described its chest as being approximately the size of a refrigerator, its arms extended below its knees. The creature was so tall that the witnesses could only see it from roughly the middle of its body downward through the windshield. Long tan-colored hair covered its body. Before the couple could obtain a clear shot at its face or upper torso, the creature disappeared into the darkness. No footprints, hair, or other physical evidence were ever reportedly found. Also in 1979, a creature estimated to stand approximately 12 foot tall was reportedly seen twice near Hemet, California within a 1-week period. Now, during the first incident, it allegedly left 17 tracks in the mud along a rural road. The footprints measured approximately 18 inches long. The distance between individual impressions was reportedly near 6 feet. Bigfoot researchers Douglas Trapp and Danny Perez investigated the location and conducted a stakeout near the trackway. The creature did not return while the researchers were present. Then in 1988, two servicemen from 29 Palms were returning from Big Bear Lake at approximately 9 o'clock p.m. And as they approached an abandoned cement facility near Lucerne Valley, an enormous upright creature ran across the road in front of their vehicle. The figure was so large that the men could only see the lower portion of its body. For several seconds, both witnesses stared at each other in disbelief. One finally asked, "What the hell was that?" The other answered, "That was the cement monster after him." The driver stopped. His companion retrieved a firearm from the glove compartment. The two men searched along the roadway and around the abandoned cement factory. They found no tracks, hair, or other evidence. They eventually concluded that they encountered an unknown upright primate or prehistoric human-like figure. They returned to their vehicle and continued home. A possible photographic encounter occurred approximately 10 years later at Joshua Tree. An anomalous witness reported camping and rock climbing with two friends at Hidden Valley Campground over the Easter break in either 1998 or 1999. Now, their campsite was positioned beside several large rock formations beneath a well-known climbing route. A deep crevice opened between the rocks. It was not a complete cave, but extended far enough into the formation that interior disappeared into darkness. The witness photographed the campsite. After the film was developed, a primate-like face appeared to be peering from within the crevice. The image was not exceptionally clear, but everyone shown the photograph reportedly noticed the face. The witness later presented the picture to a friend who had previously worked as a ranger at Joshua Tree. And after examining it, the former ranger said, "That might be Yucca Man." The witness had never heard the name before. The photograph's current location is unknown, although the witness stated it had never been intentionally discarded. Now, taken together, the Southern California desert reports describe creatures that appear upright in some encounters and quadrupedal in others. They are described as extraordinarily tall, powerfully built, covered with tan or dark hair, and capable of moving rapidly through exposed terrain without leaving recoverable evidence. Some reports describe large tracks. Others involve transparent displays of immense strength. The Yucca Valley case adds the extraordinary details of synchronized movement, human-like faces, and a pack of stray dogs behaving as if the creatures were dominant members of their group. Now, these encounters may not all involve the same type of being. Some could represent regional Bigfoot or Sasquatch reports. Others may involve misidentified bears, known animals observed under poor conditions, folklore, exaggeration, or entirely separate anomalous phenomena. However, the recurrence of enormous hair-covered figures throughout the region has ensured the legend of Yucca Man endures. Now, the reports presented tonight span Northern California forest, San Francisco Peninsula, Santa Monica, Duluth, the Inland Empire, and the Mojave Desert. They describe a wide spectrum of unexplained phenomena. A powerful creature carrying a 55-gallon fuel drum away from a logging camp and repeatedly evaded an experienced tracker. A search and rescue officer climbed a pristine staircase standing alone in the forest, after which tracking dogs explicitly lost the sight of the missing girl. A child disappeared and was recovered nearly 15 miles away, claiming he had been kept by a blurry eyeless figure known as the Fuzzy Man. A monkey fell from the sky over Colma with enough force to shatter a backyard clothesline, yet no airline could explain its origin. A grotesque floating head appeared inside a Santa Monica hotel room. A woman believes she has spent more than a year in a relationship with a shape-shifting extraterrestrial biological entity. A married couple in Duluth encountered a massive winged presence capable of breaking tree limbs and generating powerful air displacement. And throughout the deserts and the mountains of Southern California, witnesses have reported enormous hair-covered creatures, human-faced quadrupeds, 18-inch tracks, and beings capable of bending rifles or moving industrial equipment. Are these stories connected? Possibly not. California contains millions of residents in vast areas of remote, difficult terrain. Some reports may be misunderstandings, folklore, embellished memories, or deliberate fabrications. But certain patterns continue to repeat. The sudden disappearance of natural sound, tracking dogs that cannot establish or maintain a set, figures that appear blurred or visually distorted, creatures demonstrating unusual intelligence, witnesses sensing they are being watched before anything becomes visible, and entities that seem to appear briefly before retreating into the forest, deserts, darkness, or somewhere beyond our normal perception. California is one of the most populated and extensively traveled states in the country. Yet, beyond its cities and highways are enormous wilderness areas where human presence remains temporary and limited. The redwood forest, mountain ranges, desert basins, abandoned industrial sites, military reservations, and isolated rural communities may still conceal mysteries that have never been adequately documented. Now, whether the witnesses encountered undiscovered animals, paranormal entities, extraterrestrial visitors, manifestations of consciousness, or phenomena from which they have no acceptable terminology, their stories deserve to be recorded and examined. The unexplained survives because people continue experiencing things that they cannot identify. It also survives because witnesses are often reluctant to speak. Ridicule, fear, uncertainty, and concern for personal reputation prevent many people from sharing what they have seen. Thank you for joining me for this presentation on Unexplained California. Now, please subscribe to Phantoms and Monsters Radio, activate notifications, and share this presentation with others interested in the unexplained. If you experience something unexplained in California or elsewhere, I encourage you to document every detail you remember. Even details that initially seem insignificant may become important when compared to other reports. And you can submit your account to Phantoms and Monsters. Witness confidentiality and anonymity will be respected when requested. If you send a chat donation this evening, your consideration is much appreciated. Your support helps us continue documenting witness testimony, investigating unusual incidents, and preserving these accounts for future research. So let's start the questions and answers. All caps, please, folks. Lala Braid, what evidence makes you conclude an entity is biological rather than interdimensional or spiritual? Well, I guess by what it looks like. I mean, if it looks like it's something that could be biologically or actual flesh and blood, that's why the name the EBE is used. I think up until recent years, for the most part, most people believe these were flesh and blood entities, biological entities, or something in between. But more and more people have been describing these phenomena as possibly ultra terrestrials or interdimensional beings. So I don't know if the EBE designation really should continue or not, but I guess it's left up to interpretation. Dagnamma, do you think these staircases from nowhere could be a portal of some sort? Some people have seen them and described them as seeming like a portal. I don't know if they really are or not. I have read multiple stories of sightings of various types of staircases in the forest of Northern California. Now, I have no idea what this really is, but who knows? Who knows what it is? Is it something that just appears as some type of I don't know, any type of entity or possible something that just forms or just manipulates into something that's seen and seen to be physical? I don't know. I really don't know. It's an anomaly, and that we just really can't explain. It's an enigma, for any better word. Occasionally we'll get a couple sightings reported, but at this point right now, we really don't know what it is. Michelle, do you think the stairs in the forest were actually a portal that stayed locked into its into it until it gathered energy from whoever stands on the stairs? Possibly. I mean, like, does it activate when human energy comes close to it? I believe that a trainer felt that's what happened, and that's why he warned the trainee not to step on or get near it. I don't know. The stories themselves are fairly consistent, but there have been cases when people have gotten on those things and have felt very different, and it felt like they're moving in and out of some type of other reality or moving into another reality. In this instance, I really don't know, but again, it's an enigma. We have no idea what it is, and it keeps coming up every once in a while. So I guess we're just left to speculate what they really are. Aggravated progressive. Deb Varner thought, I don't know. You're going to have to rephrase that. I can't really understand what it's saying. I'm sorry. Race fam, Lon, if you saw stairs in the forest, what would you do? I'd leave it the hell alone. I wouldn't get near it. I'd look from a distance and see if I saw something explainable or whatever, but I don't know what I'd do. You know, I have no idea. But I would probably stick around and look at it for a while and see if anything happened. But going on it, nah, I don't think I'd do that. Lala, have you investigated other cases that share the same unusual physical characteristics as the Fuzzy Man? Yeah, I mean the Glimmer Man phenomena does seem like a good explanation, and you know this phenomena is popping up more and more as we go on. I mean, I'm hearing many more different sightings of these type of beings, and you know, nobody really has a good answer for it, but who knows? I don't know what they are. I wrote a book, still don't know what it is, which happens a lot. I write books and of phenomena I have no real explanation for, and I'm not about to really speculate as to what it is. Um, the Glimmer Man, I don't know. Is it an ultra terrestrial of some type? Is it some type of real cloaking entity of some type? I don't know, but it's interesting, and we're still seeing them. Jose Sanchez, are there actual photos, videos of these bizarre force staircases? I'm very intrigued. I've seen a few. I've seen a few, but like any photograph, they could be manipulated. You know, these stories do sound a bit fantastical, but they're coming from relatively respected individuals that are part of the search and rescue teams that do search these areas all the time, and for whatever reason, these things keep showing up. But then again, what is it? I have no idea. Scavan, do you think there's multiple avenues in which these phenomena interact with our reality? Yeah, I do. I mean, ultra terrestrials are interdimensional. It's kind of really the same thing, but I think it's different. From what I observed in what as far as the reports go, just like Chicago in particular with the winged humanoids, people seeing these things coming through invisible doorways and vice versa. I think there are multiple ways it may be happening, but to what it is, we don't know. Um, the best explanation I can give is that it's ultra terrestrial and has the ability, a supernatural ability to move in and out of one dimension into another or another reality. It's all speculation, but it may very well be the answer. Michelle, do you think the Medusa like head at the Georgian Hotel may have been a hologram from another building since it appeared in three dimensions in the mirror? Could have been. Could have been. Uh, it does seem a bit weird, but and there's not really a good explanation for it. Now, again, if somebody used some type of hologram or something to that effect, that would possibly explain a lot of it. But then again, we really don't know. All we have is the evidence that was provided to us, and it was all anecdotal. So there it is. Lala, when you compare these California missing person cases to others you've investigated, do you see a unique pattern for or the same phenomena repeating in different locations? Not necessarily. Um, there are connections in some of them. Many of the cases in Northern California do have a distinctive air about them. Like it does seem like there are other entities involved many of the times. Now you can say they're Bigfoot or Sasquatch or even Glimmer Man or something else. Um, they don't seem as cut and dry as many others we hear about in other parts of the country or the world. Now, I don't know how to explain that. Maybe there is an energy there that prevails and causes certain types of changes in disappearances, and I don't really know what it is, but it does seem a bit different. Michelle, do you think the beings that took the boy in the forest was either an extraterrestrial or a dark watcher? I don't know. I really don't know. Again, like the fuzzy man thing. Is that an extraterrestrial? Is it really a glimmer man of some unknown origin? Is it a cloaked Bigfoot? I don't know. It could have been anything. I've heard all kinds of theories as to what has been taking people, and the kids especially. Many times they're found in areas where it was almost impossible for them to be to go on their own, like up in cliffs and climbing up hills and such. So yeah, it's all speculation to this point, but it's interesting and thought provoking nonetheless. Paranormalism Net, do you have any new reports from your road trips? Nothing new so far. I do have information, but it's something I'm just not ready to present yet. Lala, do you think we're studying multiple phenomena or different expressions of the same phenomena? We very well could be. You know, I do believe that the supernatural, paranormal, and whatever beyond that, I think it's all tied somehow. Um, exactly to what degree we don't know. I mean, many times I'm involved in an investigation where there's something else kind of raises the ugly head and becomes part of it, but it's another type of phenomena or another being or potential being. I don't know. I really don't. But again, the possibility for it being related, absolutely. I believed that for a long time. Anagorical, anagorical. Have you ever looked into the whistleblower Victor from Jeff, the Holy Dogman channel? Thanks for your work, Scotty. No, I haven't. I honestly can say I have not. Race fan, I know some search and rescue people, and I have asked them if they ever saw stairs or any other weird stuff during a search, and the answer is always no. Well, first of all, do they want to confide in you about something like that, or do they fear for their job? You don't know. I mean, I've heard excuses as well from a lot of people who, their job depends on them and what they say. And if they say the wrong thing and it gets back to the wrong person, well, that's going to be their job. So you got to kind of take that in two ways. I mean, they don't want to sound like a nut, or their job depends on not acting like a nut. So there you go. All right. What do you think Yucca Man has remained so geographically consistent compared to other cryptids? I don't know. It's just like any other area where strange things show up in multiple terms and multiple incidents and encounters. Um, it just seems to be a regional thing. It may be expanded with imagination and perspective, because everybody has their own perspective of something, but it does seem somewhat consistent. And I've been hearing the Yucca Man stories for years. People don't really know if it's a Bigfoot or something else, but there are always a few inconsistencies that seem to mean that maybe it's multiple type of entities either changing, or the perspective is just different from whoever witnessed it. All right. Have you found any evidence that winged humanoid sightings follow cycles rather than random occurrences? No. And we tried, but we just haven't. Michelle, do you think the dating site being could have been had a cloaking mechanism that allowed it to appear human and glitches because of our environment were why he kept changing during the interaction? I'll acknowledge that it's a weird interaction and a weird event. I mean, it lasted for a year and she continued to stay into something like that. Uh, did she exaggerate it? Possibly. You know, it's a bizarre story. I've heard other bizarre stories like that, but all you can do is take the information you've got, take the anecdotal evidence, and go with it the best way you can. Jose Sanchez, might there be consistent weather conditions whenever there are increases in cryptid or even supernatural occurrences? Or is it usually more random patterns? It's mostly random. If I do make a report that does seem consistent with weather changes or other background stuff, I will mention it. But more than not, it's usually something that's just random. As you hear my cat, Vinny says it's time to end the show. So, folks, I want to again thank everyone for joining me this evening. I'm grateful for your continued interest and support of this channel. And so until next time, please remain observant, trust your instincts, and remember that the world around us may be far stranger than what we've been led to believe. So have a nice evening. Have a great weekend. See you next Friday. Good night.